Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. Everybody. Everybody's got one. Opinion hated.
Okay. Yeah. So it's opinion hated. And just a real quick one. I recently watched Roxanne, the story of Roxanne Shante. I'm feeling a little bit deflated. What I should have said is, I recently watched Roxanne. Boom, 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 boom. Roxanne, boom. I want to be your man. Yo, Kango, I don't think that you're dense, but you went about the matter with no experience. You should know she doesn't need a guy like you. She need a guy like me with a high IQ. And and I'm going to come onto that in just 1 minute. So, I shouldn't have done that, but that's actually what I think of when I hear the words Roxanne. Although the story of Roxanne Shante is more about, I asked you a question, I want to know why. Why'd you have to make a record about me? The Roxanne. Roxanne. I won't be your man. Because that's the Shante version. Yeah. And I will come back to that. So, Roxanne, the story of Roxanne Shante. I really enjoyed the movie, man. I loved the movie. So it sounds like I'm hating, right? I suppose I should really go through what I liked about it the most, and then I'll come back to more of a criticism. What did I like about it? In fact, what I liked about it is what I hated about it. What I liked about it is that it isn't the story I was expecting to hear. I've seen a lot of, whatever they want to call them, docu-pics, biopics, particularly around musicians. I don't know of any biopics of any musicians who grew up in nice, comfortable, middle-class families with loving, supporting parents and went on to Juilliard, became famous. I would like to see one, actually. I mean, it's almost like a stereotype to see the kind of struggles and obstacles that musicians have to overcome to get to where they are. It's actually a bit of a cliche. And unfortunately, like the Black Lives Matters campaign highlights, it's a cliche in the movie world because it's a cliche in real life. And not just for black people, for white musicians as well. In the current zeitgeist, Eminem and Pink would probably be two great examples of that. Keisha, do you know what I mean? It ain't all good for everybody. But my point is, that story, that framework, that blueprint is tried and tested and well known. So in that respect, it wasn't too original. Yet, as a fan of 80s and 90s hip hop, it was amazing for me to understand her background and where she came from. I said to my missus halfway through the film, I remember going to Groove Records in Tottenham Court Road with the man them, the B, that was me, Robbie and Mikey. The first rap group I had, we formed when we was 13, 14. No, maybe even earlier. We probably formed in the first year of school, 11, 12. And we'd go down to Tottenham Court Road and, go to the record shop and listen to the latest American imports, latest hip hop imports. And I remembered buying Roxanne's Revenge, by Roxanne Shante. And, just being blown away. I hasten to add that I was blown away. A lot of it was by, Roxanne Shante and her rapping and her style and her kind of, young girl vibe. But blown away equally by Marley Marl, because Marley Marl is still one of my top 5 producers. till this day. Do you know what I mean? So like I said, we've had Dr. Dre, we've had RZA, we've had Primo, we've had Pete Rock, we've had Jay Dilla, had Questlove, and still Marley Marl is like one of my top fucking 5, if not top 10 producers to this day. So I remember buying that record and just falling in love with it. And the follow-up, I never forget, one of my examples of Marley Marl being my top 5 producers, 2 tracks. Firstly, the Marley Scratch, I think one of my all-time best hip-hop records ever made. And then also Like This. You know, that he mastered, in my opinion, the industrial hip-hop sound. I don't know if that's a thing, it's just my term. You know, the sounds, the rawness and the grittiness of those 2 tracks are everything what people love about DJ Premier and what people love about RZA. That raw, I remember when Wu-Tang came out, and obviously, you forget shit. So I remember when Wu-Tang came out and everyone was talking about they'd never heard anything as dirty and grimy as that. And I said the same thing. I never heard anything as dirty and grimy as the way RZA produces. But the other day, for some reason, I came across like the Marley Marl Scratch. Like, all DJs and more rhymes attached. Form a new creation called the Marley Scratch. We're always here on a positive course. His beats, my rhyme, combine, make force. Boy, I'm just listening to this beat like... Marley, Marley, what, Marley. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, who the hell thought that they weren't making hardcore, gritty hip-hop before Primo and RZA came along? Like, to me, Marley Marl's a fucking blueprint for those guys. And then you get into a track like Bite It, and the scratch on that is like fucking Yellow Magic. It's like Yellow Magic Orchestra's bastard son. You know what I mean? It's just this industrial orchestra that's been cut in a way that only fucking King Cut ever did after that. It's just fucking insane shit. So top 5 producers. So I'm gonna have to get back into that. You can see I'm gonna struggle doing this backwards. So I think I'll do this frontwards. I'm struggling. What didn't I like about the movie? Having already said that I liked it. I loved the movie because it was the story of Roxanne Shante, which, even though the blueprint of that kind of story of triumphing over adversity to be, coming a star and self-actualize is a cliche, I was still completely gripped and transfixed at her story. Talking of Queensbridge, Nia Long in the cherry thong with the lights on. Nia Long just fucking killed it. It is of no surprise to me that when she met Chris Rock and he said, "Do you have a boyfriend?" She said, "No, but I know to get some dick if I need some." Nia Long, may I say, you have the kind of presence and eternal beauty that informs me that you will always know. You will always know where to get some dick if you need some. Of this, I'm quite sure. So Nia Long, I love it when that happens. Like, Nia Long is like, a knockout, a stunner. And always will be, right? So it's lovely to see her, playing the mom. And, playing like, still glamorous, but she's a mom, right? Still kind of dowdy, still kind of frumpy, in a kind of glamorous, frumpy way, the way moms do. And she killed the role. She killed the role to the extent that I was fucking terrified of her. Because she reminded me of the darkest moments of my own parents. So she'd come in the room and I'd be like, oh shit, the mom's shit. Like, the movie was shot like fucking brilliant. I don't know if anyone else had that feeling, but I had the feeling of just this real fucking terror. It was a brooding terror. It was almost like fucking Get Out. Do you know what I mean? By Jordan Peele. There was this brooding terror. Firstly with the mum, when she, became an alcoholic and she became abusive and, she'd kick her out and mistreat her. That was terrifying. Then there was attempted rape scene, which was equally terrifying. And then we get to the relationship with her abusive partner, which is just fucking horrible. And that reality, experiencing that reality, going on that journey with her, to me, kind of killed the cliche, maybe because of how well it was done. Like, there are a lot of women who have been through that type of story. I've seen a lot of people, a lot of movies tell that story or TV shows tell that story. It's a crying shame that it's not an uncommon story. Yet I was fucking gripped. I don't think I've ever been as gripped by anything I've seen recently. I was terrified. It was like watching fucking Steven Spielberg. Like, they got me scared when they wanted to be scared. They got me sad when they wanted to be sad. And I was horrified when they wanted me to be horrified. There's this scene where her abusive partner, starts to abuse her, man, and he punches her, and it's just fucking horrific. It's freaky to me because I remember like the Tina Turner. I remember the Tina Turner story. And rappers were talking about that slap that Ike gave Tina, slapped her and her head span around and hit the door. That became like a fucking rap staple. Slap you up like Tina, round and hit the door. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't like they were glorifying violence, though rap is incredibly fucking misogynistic. So let's say that it wouldn't be unusual for rappers to be glorifying violence against women. But it was such a fucking iconic scene that it appeared in people's rhymes. It's like, that's what you would say. Like, yo, I'm going to slap you like that. A lot of the time they were saying that. They were talking to men, by the way. They weren't saying, I'll slap you up, woman, like that. They were talking like, yo, this bitch ass motherfucker, I wouldn't even punch you. I wouldn't even cap you. I would slap you like I slapped her, like, make you fly across the room and head hit the door. That kind of stuff. It's really funny. As I say that, I realize that doesn't make it any better. But I've been a lifelong fan of rap music for the last 40 years. So I'm not going to sit here and try and justify everything that rap music is. Some of it's positive, some of it's fucked up, and it's just my guilty pleasure, and it's my job to walk away from, whatever negativity rap music gives me and walk away from it a good person. That's how I look at it. That's like, I always say this, I said this a million times, that's like watching Martin Scorsese movies, being excited or interested or, lifted by the lifestyle of La Costa Nostra, the Italian mafia, but not going out there and murdering motherfuckers or running extortion rackets. There's a difference. That's what it is. It is what it is. You don't get to say it's good because it ain't. You get to say that you can enjoy it. That's actually really what music and movies were always there to do, is to allow you to live vicariously through the lifestyles of others, so you don't have to live that shit. And there's good and bad to that, but that's a whole nother podcast. So that's what the movie did brilliantly. It was one of the most engaging films I've ever seen. Even down to the scene where the kids were waiting for the dad and the dad didn't come. It just gripped you on every level. So, as a movie about a young girl and her journey to womanhood and her baby and a relationship with her mom and a relationship in her peers and stuff, this movie was really fucking second to none. Maybe I don't watch enough movies. I ain't Mark Kermode. Do you know what I mean? I don't get paid to sit around and watching movies, so I probably don't watch as many, But I watch a few. I watched The Irishman the other day. Better than I thought it would be. I watched The Five Bloods. Better than I thought it would be, but very typically Spike Lee. So I watch a few. Definitely not enough. Definitely not enough of the right type of movies. What I mean by that is movies that really make you think, because by the time I get to Movieville, I just want to be fucking entertained. I've had a long day's work. A long week's work, and I just want some mindless fucking entertainment. I ain't trying to think. So luckily, sometimes the wife puts on something that's a bit more thoughtful, and I get to enjoy that. I actually, while I'm making this podcast, I just finished the half of it, which I'm probably going to make a whole podcast. I really must take the time. Bearing in mind, I made a whole statement about, why I don't believe in Black History Month, and my love of, the recent emergence of the Chinese American voice in film. Having watched Crazy Rich Asians and To All the Boys I'd Loved Before, and oh my God, I can't remember the name, but there's this Randall Park, and I can't remember her name. She's got a stand-up. Randall Park and this other comedian's got a stand-up. I watched her stand-up and it was pretty fucking good as well. Yeah. And they got a movie as well. She's a chef and he's like works with his dad in air conditioning. Awesome fucking movie. So my point being, this Asian American voice in movies at the moment, I'm loving. And this movie, the half of it, just fucking brilliant. Now, in actual fact, the half of it is actually the movie I want to make. It tells the story I want to make about the blurred lines between friendship and love. That's the movie I've wanted to make since I was a kid. You know what I mean? That, it's not all about, oh, I love you, this is non-platonic, oh, we are friends, this is platonic. There's levels in that. Those lines are very fucking plainly blurred. And that movie, the half of it, actually really tells that story quite brilliantly. So, I just literally just stopped watching that. So amazing. But, like most of the time, I say unequivocally and totally unashamedly, when I watch a movie, I want to see shit blow up. Most of the time, I've had a hard day, I've been working hard, I'm stressed, and I just want to see shit blow up. Maybe not as bad as Fast and Furious 8. I don't need to see submarines bursting out of the fucking ice caps with high octane American muscle cars flying over the bow. That, even for me, is just a little bit fucking ridiculous, Gus. But I do want to see submachine guns popping off and shit blowing up. It could even be subtle, like The Irishman. The Irishman didn't have a lot of, submachine gun, Al Pacino, Scarface type gangster violence, or Rambo, a soldier of fortune type violence. But watching Robert De Niro walk up and put two in someone's head, like the second one hit the skull before the body falls to the ground, it's still kind of entertaining shit. And Al Pacino's performance of Hoffa, and fucking Joe Pesci's performance is just like, oh man, dude, motherfucker. That you can watch that shit all day. So back to Roxanne. Like I said, just babbling on, want to give a bit of my background of how I judge movies so you can judge that yourself. But I still found it one of the most gripping movies. That portrayal of her life, Mahershala Ali. I've been a fan. I've been being a fan. Like I told people right back since the 4400. I know about this guy. I must admit I wasn't a great fan of his acting then. I think I said that before. But everything he's done since then, I think has been quite fucking amazing. Although I haven't seen him in True Detective. I never watched that. I think it's because Colin Farrell in the second season just fucking killed that series for me. Like I just couldn't turn it on. I must go back to it. But everything else he's been in, I've been in love with. I love his performance. I love his style. And he was amazing in this. Like his character, I believe. And it was so funny because he seduced us all. His character was Cross. So when this big old crusty ass Kango wearing man started hitting on this fucking 16-year-old girl, we knew it wasn't right. But he seduced her subtly, so he kind of seduced me. Like I was like, oh fuck it, maybe this guy is gonna be okay. Maybe this isn't some old crusty ass guy looking for a young girl that he can pimp and control. And then before you knew it, it was everything you fucking knew it was gonna be in the first place. So I can't speak for anybody else, but she wasn't the only one who got tricked and hurt by this guy. I got tricked and hurt by him. I was thinking that maybe he wasn't this punk and he was really just a crusty old gas guy who, fell in love with this young girl and it was going to be all good. And it wasn't. It was exactly the fucking stereotype you thought it would have been right at the outset without giving it a chance. So just amazing storytelling, and I'm sorry that it's her life, but the way the story was told and the way he played that was fucking brilliant. So standout performances, obviously, to I think it's Shantae Adams who plays Roxanne, but her name isn't Shantae in the movie. Or definitely to Nia Long, definitely to Mashari Ali. It's really funny. Every other time I try and say my man's name, I can't get it. I get it right the first time, and the second time I won't get it. Yeah, so that's what I love about it. So glad I got there. Because it's so hard for me to talk about what I don't like about it. And I'll tell you what I don't like about it in a sentence, and then I'll try and go more into it. As a fan who bought Roxanne's Revenge and Bite It and some of those other tracks, one of the crew that had the Roxanne Shantae album, we bought a lot of Juice Crew shit. It didn't bring in enough of the music. It was almost like Shantae's life with the music as a backdrop. Now, it's very clear that's what they wanted to tell. So I think it's perfect for the movie that it was. That she obviously wanted to tell her life with the music as a backdrop. The problem for me is that as a fan, I didn't want the music as a backdrop. I actually wanted the music to be part of her life. So I liked it when she started out with a battle rapping, and they put her in the box, Queensbridge's #1 battle rapper, and then that guy kept saying, "Fuck you, Shantae," and she caught him in the wrong day, and she just tore off his head. That's the level I wanted the music to continue to play in the story. But what happened instead was, I think it played the right role right up until the point that she made the first track, Roxanne's Revenge. Because that's the kind of backstory tidbits that I wanted. Now, there's a lot of this stuff on YouTube at the moment. Lots of people from the 80s talking about what happened in rap. There was a great one, I straight up can't remember who the hell it was, but he broke down the lyrics to Sucker MC. And it was just a fucking glorious moment for me, because I'm not from fucking QB. I'm born in fucking Tottenham, London. I wouldn't know that. So when he goes, and it's one of my favorite songs, one of the songs that got me into hip hop, and one of my favorite rhymes. So he broke down a few years ago. A friend of mine asked me to say some MC rhymes, so I said this rhyme I'm about to say. The rhyme was deaf, and then it went this way. Took a test to become an MC, and Larry Lads came amazed at me, so Larry put me inside his Cadillac. The chauffeur drove off for me, never came back. They cut the record down to the bone, and now they got me rocking under microphones. And then we took a bubble bath with tears and laughs, champagne, caviar, and bubble bath. You see, and that's a life that I lead, and you sucker MCs and do I please is get you back to back, get your heart attack. Because there's nothing in the world that run a level like a cold chill at the party in the boy stands. I rock on the mic and make a girls wanna dance, fly like a dove, go straight from above. I'm rocking on the mic and you can come around love. Like, I know that rhyme. Now I'm trying to say, I know that rhyme. That's the shit that got me into it. That rhyme and Melly Mel's verse on the message are the reason I spent like the rest of my life in hip hop. So when this guy, I can't remember who it was, broke down that rhyme, he explained that Kurt Blow, we all know Kurt Blow was the man, although I was never a Kurt Blow fan. And DJ Run was the DJ. So when Russell Simmons, or whatever, we all know about Russell Simmons and the legendary business he built with Def Jam. Let's talk less about his relationship to the Me Too movement. But the legendary business he built with Def Jam, and particularly Rush Management and tours. Because even before Def Jam, the record label everybody knew about Rush tours. When I wanted to go to Brixton Academy to look at the groups, to see who came over, it was Rush bringing these groups over, right? So apparently back in that day, Russell Simmons, his brother, I'm not talking about Russell. Anyway, it was DJ Run. He even raps and calls himself DJ Run. So the point being, he was a DJ, not a rapper. So that's the whole few years ago, a friend of mine asked me to say some ends and rhymes. I took a test. You know what I mean? That, he's saying that he basically took a test to be a MC. He was a DJ, but I took a test to become an MC. So he actually took a test. They tested him to see if he could rap, or if he was just one of them, as Kanye would say, a producer rapper, where, you're really a producer, or you're really a good scratch DJ or a mix DJ, and you want to rap, but you ain't really got the skills. So he took the test to become an MC. And Larry Laz was the guy who made him take the test. He was like, up in the business side of things. And Larry Laz came amazed at me. So then he took me inside his Cadillac. Now, apparently at that time, Larry Laz had a real live Cadillac. He was like balling like that. Balling back in those days, you had like a stretch limo. I think you used to rent it out for weddings and shit. So Larry put me inside his Cadillac. The chauffeur drove off and we never came back. So that's like Ryan explained that he changed his life from being the DJ who would have been the backup DJ for Kurt Blow shows to taking a test to become an MC. And their man being amazed at his rapping skills, saying, yeah, no, forget this DJ shit. I'm going to make you a star. Yo, come in the Cadillac. Let's drink some champagne. Off it drives. And that's the end of the story. He's never gone back to being an MC. Now he's gone forward into being a Run the rapper. So, that breakdown, like 50 minutes on YouTube, literally fucking highlighted my life. I know that makes you really realize how fucking sad I am. But, I'm not the only one. If you're into Elvis Presley, I'm pretty sure you're watching documentaries about Elvis Presley and finding out about, little aspects of his life, or the things that informed his dancing, or the things that informed his songwriting. Because you have that real interest when you're a fan, right? So I have that interest. And Shantae the movie, Roxanne didn't give me that. The only things it gave me were, the best part was when she went to record the song. I love that. She did doing the mum's laundry. Marley shouts her out the window in the projects. Yo, come up here, spit this rhyme. Yo, I only got 10 minutes. She comes up there, she spits the rhyme. 10 minutes later, the song's done. Then, and when she heard the song on the radio, well, her friends called her to tell her song was on the radio because, I remember that. I remember the first time I ever heard my song on the radio. And that's a thing. Maybe not now because, there ain't the same gatekeepers. So maybe now you make your shit, you put it up on YouTube and it's different. But back then, to get your shit on the radio, you had to pass a load of fucking gatekeepers. So if you got past the gatekeepers, you had arrived. You hadn't made any fucking money, but you had definitely achieved something to hear your shit playing back to you over the radio wave. So I got that. I got why her friends called her up at late at night to say, you're on the radio. Like, you know what I mean? Like, only Kool and the Gang get on the radio. What the fuck? Only like Kool and the Gang and, these other big 80s disco groups get on the radio, and you're on the radio. You're in that league. It's a thing that maybe that this generation wouldn't really understand. So, those are the aspects of it I love. But then as it got more into the stuff, they got as far as her and Sparky D in the battles. I remember all of that. That was cool. But they didn't really kind of progress to me the musical side of it enough to inform me, really tell the stories about, what happened with her in the music. It was really kind of a backdrop. It was just really like, yo, fuck it, I ain't making no money with this music shit. And now I'm in an abusive relationship. And then it was like, okay, I'm going on tour, and then the motherfucker ain't paying me. You know what I mean? But I think there's so much more that could have been told about those music stories, about the tour stories. With the tour, all we got was, I discovered Biz Markie. One day when Marley Marl and me had an argument, I discovered Biz Markie. Okay, that's great. But, Roxanne Shantae's life involves so much more. I would particularly, if you would ask me what I wanted to see. So if you're going to ask me particularly the aspects of her music life that I wanted to see, I would have loved to have seen her relationship with UTFO. Because the UTFO crew, you know what you could do? Go and tell you one for me and then I tell you one for you. Every time I say, yeah, Ram, I just like a disser. You know what I'm trying to say? Like, they were battling, right? UTFO made a song called Roxanne. By the way, just in case you don't know, because I don't understand why this isn't taught in schools. Why this isn't a museum thing. Like, we talk about black history and black culture. UTFO and Roxanne, I think, created one of the most seminal moments in music history. I don't think there has ever been a song that has had so many reply versions ever made in the history of music, and people just slide past this fact. But I was there. I wasn't in Queensbridge, I wasn't in the Bronx, I wasn't in America, but I was a hip-hop fan. So to this day, I'm crying. I had a fucking TDK 90 minute tape, right? We had tapes back then, cassette tapes. The whole thing was Roxanne songs. It was Roxanne, Roxanne by UTFO. Roxanne's Revenge by Roxanne Shante. The Real Roxanne by The Real Roxanne. Then there was another UTFO answer back to, I think it was to Roxanne Shante. Then it was Romeo. Then there was like a fucking on-record flirtation going on between The Real Roxanne and Romeo. And then there was Roxanne's dentist, Roxanne's chiropractor, Roxanne's brother's next door's auntie's cat, Roxanne's ghost, Roxanne. It was just fucking insane. Like everybody seemed to make a record talking about this Roxanne saga. Now, reggae music, dancehall reggae, which I love, has a thing called a studio system, where effectively, unlike, anywhere else in the world, normally you have music is made by a producer who comes together with an artist. The music meets the lyrics and the vocalist. Maybe there's three of them. Maybe some person writes, someone performs, somebody makes the music. These things come together, a song is made. Reggae system basically is based on the Motown system. But even Motown didn't do it that much. Motown might write a song and maybe have it performed by 3 or 4 artists over a couple of years until one of them had a hit with it. But the reggae music scenario, they make a rhythm. So they've got the studio system where you go to the studio based around the economics more than anything else. Somebody has a studio, he brings in an artist, somebody writes it, they make a rhythm, and then they just have a revolving door of artists coming in. And rather than saying we're only going to release the one that we think is going to be a hit, they release them all and let them compete. I quickly subsequently say, probably the greatest music making system in the world, and something else again that needs its own museum for recognition. Just like the shit people be talking about, we don't appreciate the stuff we've done. I don't think there's ever been a system as great as the dancehall reggae studio system, where they make a rhythm and they bring in artist after artist after artist to see what they can do that rhythm. The reggae music studio system is effectively at what they used to call what Shakespearean play writing was about. Who can do the best thing with the idea? Here's a piece of music. There are 50 of you. Which one of you can do the best thing with this piece of music? Just genius. But I digress. So the Roxanne to me was almost like a version of that. The Roxanne's Roxanne answer version, scenario. I think at the last count there were over 100 versions of stories relating to that original UTFO record, Roxanne. And I felt really cheated that the record that actually started it off, because I think UTFO's idea, and I could be wrong, was to do their song called Roxanne, which is about 4 guys in a crew who all met a girl called Roxanne and all tried to hit on her, and their relative stories. Genius in its own. And by the way, I was a massive UTFO fan, which informs, the way I feel about this. So that was genius in itself. And then I think their idea was to bring in the real Roxanne. Maybe not. I'm not sure. Maybe Roxanne Shante forced this. And this is stuff I'd like to know. But I think they definitely, if it wasn't the original idea, it soon became the idea to bring in their own Roxanne to have an answer version to the song. So it was like, here's a song about the 4 guys who tried to hit on this girl, but who is this girl? Hey, here's the girl. She's speaking for herself. And I think, maybe Roxanne Shante jumped in and jumped on that before they could get their own girl out there. She came and made an answer version like, hey, I'm this girl, Roxanne, that all you guys are trying to, chat up. And let me tell you why I wasn't interested in you, because, da-da-da-da-da. And she went through all the crew, basically saying like, I met this guy with the name of a hat. That's like Kango. Like, why the fuck would I date a guy with the name of a hat? You know what I'm trying to say? So she went through all of these guys and explained why she didn't want to date them, right? So brilliant. So a real moment in not just hip hop history, not just black music history, motherfucking from Beethoven, Tchaikovsky, right through to fucking Beyonce and Taylor Swift, music history. And yet this movie just passed it by. All it was that, she made a song called Roxanne's Revenge. They didn't even say it was a response to a song called Roxanne. Now, I don't know if it was because they couldn't get the rights to involve UTFO or their music or whatever, but it just left this huge hole in what that was all about. why her song was so big. It was so big because Roxanne was a movement for about a year in hip hop, and she had like one of the opening salvos. So I think I just think they missed the point in terms of the music and its impact. And then the Juice Crew, similarly, like, it's great that you show that you met Biz Markie backstage when you had no DJ and he beatboxed for you. That's wonderful. And I love Biz Markie. What was that again? I am the magnificent. I want to. I am the magnificent. I so but take it. I must admit, when I first heard that, shame on me, I thought that was Biz Markie talking in the background, not Ansel and Collins off a friggin' reggae record. I should have known better. Can you imagine? I let the Americans school me on reggae, being a black man from the Caribbean born in London, and I got schooled on reggae by them man there. Another story. But then again, Soul to Soul did my work for me, and they took Biz Markie's Picking Boogers beat and made, took it back to America. And made history. So hey, I guess it's all fair. But my point is, the Juice Crew, like Big Daddy Kane. Okay, I mean, there's, MC Shan is in the room. We're not even told his name is MC Shan. I know more about the promoter Ray than I know about MC Shan. And I'm like, well, you can't be fucking serious. It's like a John McEnroe moment. Like, at one point in hip hop, MC Shan was the man. I still got Shan on my Instagram. You know what I mean? At one point in hip hop, MC Shan was the man. Like I said, the Marley Scratch. All DJs and my rhymes attached. Form a new creation called the Marley Scratch. We're always here on a positive course. His beats, my rhymes combine, make force. One point, this guy was the fucking man. And the thing is, the Juice Crew was so fucking dominant that when KRS came out, he had to go at the Juice Crew. Now, you're talking about, again, in history, let's not get into people's personal lives because they all fucking disappoint us. And nobody in music has disappointed me more than KRS-One. Not even R. Kelly. Just keeping it real. Just keeping it buck 100. But I can get into that. That's a whole nother podcast. Probably a fucking therapy session. But my point is this. I'm not saying he did anything worse than R. Kelly. I'm just saying that I was more disappointed. But my point is this. He, as the #1 battle rapper, went at the Juice Crew. It's like there was no one else to fucking care about. The only people worth going at were the Juice Crew because they were saying that, hip hop started in Queensbridge, whereas he knew that or said it started in the Boogie Down Bronx, right? So he had to go at them and go at Shan with the bridge, and he made the bridge is over, put it bye. A record in which he said Roxanne and Shantae is only good for steady fucking. So he went at this whole crew. So the fact that they just passed the whole Juice Crew by effectively meant they passed one of the most important eras of hip hop by that Roxanne Shantae was part of. So even though it was an amazingly gripping story about a young girl and her journey to womanhood with music as a background, it actually was a very personal story, but would have been a better story if they'd actually set that in the context, not just of her and her background, her parentage and her relationships and, her journey, but also the fact that it was actually a major part of everybody's fucking history if they're listening to anything called hip-hop R&B, which actually is about 1/3 of the planet. And that's what I can't get my head around. Like, I think old school people are so fucking twisted. Like, they are kind of really embarrassed by their shit. I don't know if that's the reason why, but I've met a lot of people who were into hip-hop and now feel very embarrassed because they think that maybe what they were doing was corny because now we've got all this fucking money and we've got, like, Dr. Dre gets the original fucking tapes of Marvin Gaye, and he can, manipulate that. Was back in that day, we'd had that on a tape and we'd have to sample it. I mean, I remember back in the day, I had like, an Amstrad double cassette tape machine. I was trying to make beats. I play like a 4-second segment of a song and then stop it and just play and record to try and get myself like, 2 minutes that I could rap over. And obviously you can't do that perfectly, right? So you got a song that's going da, 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 and that's your second. Then you go record again. And what you end up with is and you're trying to rap over this shit. But that's what it fucking was. That's what hip hop was. That's why hip hop came from the street. That's why it's the voice of the street. That's why it was the rebellion against, it was hip hop, as I've often said, is karate. Karate means open hand. Karate is defense for people who had no weapon, who had no money for weapons, no money for elaborate armor, no money to learn how to ride horses and shoot arrows and fight with swords. So the only thing they had was the empty hand. That is what hip hop was to music. Nobody could afford a guitar lesson or a violin lesson or piano lessons. No one could afford a drum kit. All they had was their mouth, their hands, and maybe a record player to play other people's music. And they used what they had to make music. You know what I mean? It's like, and that ingenuity, that genius, that hunger to want to make music with absolutely nothing, with no resources, that hunger to still want to express yourself and be creative, created the most dominant fucking musical art form of the 20th century going into the 21st century. And the creators of it seem fucking embarrassed. I just don't get it. Roxanne, the Roxanne saga should be in a fucking museum. It should be taught in music school. You know what I mean? It really should. Because you can't listen to Justin Bieber or Ariana Grande or fucking anybody without knowing that that's where it came from. That's the root of what these people are doing. You know what I mean? So it blows my mind that people that, they just kind of skated by why Shantae was making an answer record. They skated by the whole UTFO thing. I'm sure I read somewhere or heard somewhere that she met UTFO and they had some kind of words or exchange or whatever. They skated by like it never happened. They skated by. I think she had some kind of words or some kind of vibe with the real Roxanne when she came out. Real Roxanne made some song called Bang Zoom, Baby Let's Go. Skated by like it never happened. Okay, they brought in Sparky D because she was on tour with Sparky D. Skated by MC Shan's career. Skated by Big Daddy Kane. No, they do a wonderful thing with the Shantae where they bring in the fact that she influenced Nas. It doesn't really matter how true that part of the story is because there's no way he came out of Queensbridge and wasn't influenced by Shan and Roxanne Shantae. So that's just a given. You know what I'm trying to say? But by skating past the Juice Crew, skating past one of the best rappers hip hop has ever known, Big Daddy Kane, who Jay-Z himself accredits as putting him on, used to bring him onto his shows and let him perform and has never asked him back for anything. Big Daddy Kane, who was in in Madonna's fucking sex book. Like, Madonna wasn't just picking up motherfuckers off the street. You had to be somebody to be invited to that kind of level. Even though the sex book was bullshit, it was about who she was to be invited to the party. Big Daddy Kane, who was in the fucking Black Western along with Tone Loc. Like, I'm not trying to say that it was a Juice Crew movie. I'm just saying that I find it amazing that they just skated past all of this shit. Like, it just never happened. And I'm talking from memory. I'm sure there's a shit lot more stuff that I can't remember, a shit lot more other artists who are in or down or around with the Juice Crew. But I would have expected to see at the very least in this movie on a musical level, some interaction with UTFO, some acknowledgement and interaction with the Juice Crew, more than just Shan hanging around in a Kangol and meeting Biz Markie, and some interaction on a level with KRS-One, because although it wasn't a big thing between her and KRS-One, he went at the Juice Crew, and it could have been something in the background, and all that would have played into the fact of, why am I watching this movie about Roxanne Shante? Because basically what I saw was just an amazing story that could have been about anyone, because it was the blueprint. Young girl, broken home, disturbed family upbringing, dominant, terrifying, almost abusive mother, overcomes her struggles, falls into a bad crowd, gets into domestic abuse, has a baby, and has to sort her life out. That could have been, that's like Precious. It's like, there are a lot of stories to that blueprint. I hasten to add again, this particular one I think was brilliantly told and brilliantly acted, but in terms of what the writers decided to use to include as material, bearing in mind it's a biopic, is not just a story of some young girl. It's a story of Shante, who is a human being who I was buying her records when I was 15, 16 years old. And I know the backdrop against which she came, even though I was on the other fucking side of the world. So I can't understand why this movie was produced without almost any fucking, any mention of that backdrop at all. I just find it really bizarre. Obviously it was their decision. This is just opinion hated. And my opinion is, I can't hate it. Actually, it's a brilliant movie, a beautiful movie, impactful movie. Like I said before, I was terrified and scared and nervous when they wanted me to be. I was horrified when they wanted me to be. So it hit all the right buttons in terms of impacting me. But I have to say, this is even a shit sandwich, is a 50-50. For what it was brilliant, but for what it lacked, it was really sadly lacking. Maybe they didn't have the budget, maybe there'll be a part 2, but I don't know how there could be a part 2 because they skated past all those parts of her life. You know what I'm trying to say? So I just think, I think whoever wrote that, and I know Shante executively produced it, I just don't get it. I honestly believe that they don't place enough importance on their place in history. Listen to me. I'm sorry to tell you, because I'm an old fella, but I'm going to tell you. Roxanne Shante and the Juice Crew have a more important part in fucking music history than Tupac and Biggie. Yet Tupac and Biggie's biopics talk a lot about their fucking music and their relationships with other people. And they bring in Suge Knight, and they bring in Puff Daddy, and they bring in, Tupac and Biggie beef, and they bring all that shit in. They bring in Digital Underground because it's part of the story. They bring in the movies. But this biopic skated past the music. And I just don't get it. And it's really sad. It kind of upset me. You probably can tell. So as I said, the opinion hated, I can't hate it. I can't hate it. I have to love it for all the reasons I said, but it really should have been so much more. And I can't work out why it wasn't so much more. I don't think it would have been that much harder to make it that much more. They wouldn't have had to make, elaborate pool party scenes and, car crashes and car chases, spend that kind of budget, gun battles. They wouldn't have had to spend that kind of budget to have a Big Daddy Kane, a Cool G Rap, and a KRS-One, and a UTFO. A Full Force. I just don't get it. It could have been in a club. Hey, there go the UTFO guys, man. One of them step up to her, yo, why you steal that record, bitch? Why are you biting? Do you know what I mean? Just whatever happened, I would have loved to have seen, because I know it happened. And I don't get why they just flew past that. They could have shot that in the same scene they shot with meeting Biz Markie, because we know that movies aren't chronological order. They're just about telling the story. So they could have shot that in the same scene. So I just don't get it. My personal belief is it's a lack of appreciation, a real lack of self-appreciation for what they contributed to the art form of music worldwide. And, I think it's sad. And that's my opinion. If you don't agree with me, then my opinion can be hated. I'm out.
Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one. Opinions are like assholes. Everybody's got one.
Opinion hated. Opinion hated.